Guys, you have 2 minutes.
Well, we are live already.
Great.
And this is Toni Weel, and today we have Marie Russel with us. When she asked me, what was it, last week or so, 2 weeks ago, let's talk about the Garden of Eden living. And yesterday I asked her, okay, what exactly is it that you do want to talk about? And she said it's preparing for spiritual integration, moving from thinking to feeling. That is a good one, a really good one. And moving from the heart in our daily lives. So she asked that we just do a conversation about those topics. But since she asked me, I'll leave it up to her where we go with this. And I was intrigued because he mentioned the Garden of Eden living. And as most people who listen to us know, we are still working too on our own social platform where we can connect and learn, and that one is called the Garden of Eden.social. So it is an important topic for me because there is a completely different way of living that we can do. And there is something, and we'll see if it actually comes up because and it has to do with animals. And I do want to touch on that topic too. So Marie, I'll leave it at first up to you. Where are we going?
Okay. Well, I love that overview because, when we met Toni, I was just kind of waking up to this idea that we could live in another way. And I was already kind of had a momentum in terms of the way I wanted to live. I was living at the beach, I was around lots of really cool, hip, people. There was a lot of fruit and veg and natural product around, and I've been healing cancer for 5 years. So all with natural treatments and therapies. So Mexico was the right place for me. But what we started to kind of really go deeper into, the more that I started to learn about fasting and cleansing and, raw foods, and then the supplementation, and, you're really in with the Dr. Morse group, but all of that was fairly new to me about 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And so when we talk about the Garden of Eden living, I was having a conversation last week with a couple women across the country who were exploring ways to approach cancer from a more holistic way, And one of the women said to me, I just want to find a doctor who's, listens to me and can do. Bye, honey. My kids are going back to school. Sorry about that. It's all good. Thank you for the kiss. Bye, Adam. Bye. Everybody loves you. Lots of love coming in. It's so sweet because this is also Garden of Eden living that I'll get to, just the way that my kids can come home for lunch and I can see them in the middle of the day, and the way that we kind of orchestrate our lives is really important. But back to the story, the woman had said to me, I want to find a doctor. And I said, you need to find yourself. And what I realized through all of this is that the Garden of Eden, I think we all, who are in this conversation can agree that the Garden of Eden is an energy field. It's a feeling that we can step into. It's a vibration. And the more that we step into that vibration, the more our outer world reflects that back to us. Right now, I'm looking at these beautiful poppy flowers that just came out, and there's a lilac tree, and there's beauty all around us, and there's nature all around us. Wherever we are, we can tune into that and ground into that. But what I realize for so many of us is that the reason that we don't want to do that, or what holds us back, or says, oh, we can't just eat fruit, or if I fast for 3 days, I'll get hangry and mean, and that might happen. But, we have all of these excuses that prevent us from doing that. But many people in the last few years, and I've been teaching yoga for now 20 some years, and I've seen such a momentum with people, especially in these last few years, of learning that they can make a choice to turn away from what doesn't work towards what does. And so when we look at where we're going with all the spiritual content and the fasting and the yoga, or whatever modalities meditation we're into, we realize that no matter how much information we gain, at some point we've got to move from the intellect, from the thinking about what I can do or what could be done, to not only doing it, but feeling into what does it feel like when I am compassionate? Like how does that feel in my body? And how do I talk to other people when I'm residing in that place of compassion? And I feel like that's really the next step in terms of a lot of people these days moving into more of that Garden of Eden experience rather than the thought about it, or where it is. The Garden of Eden lies within, and yes, it's in our outer world too. But I think that so many people have intellectualized so much of this information, and we can see so much of what's wrong in the world around us. But focusing on that while preaching compassion and forgiveness and unity consciousness shows me, and I've seen it within myself, that there needs to be more cohesiveness. Like I need to bridge a gap here where I can think something and speak about it and want it and desire it, but I'm not actualizing it. And so that's really what I work on with people. I hope that was useful and made sense, but it's like really looking at, okay, I want to be healthier in my body, or I want to heal something significant like cancer, or, there's just a plethora of things that people are needing to look at nowadays. And we're looking at it more and more because we can see that the alternatives in the world around us and in some of those bigger organizations aren't really giving us the effects that we want. And so we realize at some point that we've got to change our lifestyle, that it can't just be something from the outside that's going to fix me on the inside. I've got to look at what's happening on the inside and how can I approach that in a loving way. And the more that I do that, the more loving and compassionate I become. And then I'm challenged in my outer world because I'm then like, oh, well, how do I interact with these people that are doing A, B, and C that I no longer, participate in? And so it really gives us a lot of content on the spiritual path to determine for ourselves how deep we want to go with this, and how willing we are to look at the places within ourselves that we are in fear and maybe not moving from the most honest intention, the purest of hearts. We might want to do good things in the world, but our vibration, if there's a line of judgment, if there's a line of anger or aggression or all of those types of energies, if there's just a little bit in there, it does tend to pollute the whole bit. And so I think that's really where, again, Garden of Eden comes back, where we're in a purification process. Rather than looking at this as a detox, it's how can I purify myself so that my soul is shining through this vehicle of my body, rather than my body sheltering my soul and protecting my soul. And that's really the function of our egos, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but when it starts to drive our behaviors is when we start to see some of those negative energies coming out in the way that we're communicating, in the way that we're living, in the way that we're feeling. Does that make sense?
It does absolutely make sense. And I haven't given it too much thought, actually, because for me it was like, well, that is just the way it is. You show the compassion, you do want the unity, but it's not happening that easily. And I wasn't really that conscious about it. But yeah, I've been living a few more years than most of us here. And
Right.
I feel that maybe with the growing older, it just became easier.
Mm-hmm.
And without even thinking about it, that is behind my whole idea of setting up the Garden of Eden a platform. But you are so right. It needs to be a big part of our healing. It's not only about food.
Right.
It's because if you're an unhappy person and you're a stressful person, there's no healing.
Right. Right. It's so multidimensional. It's so, has to do with healing our relationship to spirit, to the divine, our relationship to our emotions, how we react to things, how we communicate. our physicality is one part of it. And a lot of us are focused on the physical, and rightly so. But when we fast, our emotions that have been held and hidden move out faster. So it's like, it's an acceleration process that we're going on. And the more that we determine for ourselves, how important this is it just a fad? Is it just for a certain amount of time? Is it just to heal this? Or is this a lifestyle that can be sustainable? And if I'm choosing that trajectory, then I've got to look at, my emotional health, my mental health, my spiritual connections, and learn how to be more, cohesive within all of those different elements, because I think it's really important for us to start to represent, energetically too. It has to be consistent. And I think that's why, for me, even, coming back into podcast land, and, I had a lot of energy, a lot of my intention towards building community and, putting out what I perceive to be important content. But, all of that was good, and all of that was part of the journey. And along that journey, some things work, some interactions are better than others, some relationships pan out, some stop, but the underlying current is, what is the intention here? And like you just said, like, the intention is to be a compassionate witness to what is actually happening here. Like, it's miraculous. Like, what makes the wind touch some trees and not other trees? Like, if we can learn how to live more in the mystery, rather than this thinking mind that wants to have all this information and say what's right and what's not. It's like, let's just try and live that and do our best with it, so that our ambition doesn't like usurp our intention. So a lot of people, we can have these big visions, and I see it in my own, personality construct. Sometimes I really have to check in around, where am I having too much ambition that it's actually going into control? And the way that I can really check in with that is, what is happening in my body? How do I feel? Am I feeling anxious? Well, if I am, then I can be sure that there's some degree of fear. And so it skews my intention, and my ambition gets kind of, it doesn't allow that purity to come through. So when we purify our bodies, we are also purifying our minds, and we're purifying our minds from judgmental thinking. We're learning how to be more tolerant, more accepting. It doesn't mean we have to subscribe, to things that don't resonate with us, but we're holding a space for all things to be exactly as they are, because we're grounded and we're rooted in the fact that God is benevolent, and that there's love that is omnipresent, and that the love is real, and everything else is this illusion in which we're working through, so that we can get to the love, but also be the love. So we're moving towards our creator, because we were created in love, and that's what we are. So this is what, we do in this quote Garden of Eden. You're over there, I'm over here, and at some point we might all be together online and in person, and who knows. But our intention is unity and communication and love and generosity and joy. And I think that changes how we behave on a day-to-day, because we have that intention. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, and my mind is going in quite a few different directions. I try to get it to one point. I was thinking about all the people who are going through a lot of emotions, especially when they start on their healing journey, and a lot of traumas come up.
Mm-hmm.
And even with everything that you said, it's like, I've shared a lot of this with people too. They don't seem to be able to get to that point, and the fear keeps kicking in. So I did wonder if we first start, because a lot has to do with your adrenals, with weak adrenals. do we first go through the healing aspect with a different diet, get on a more high frequency food intake? I have you said it so beautifully, Marie, and I try to like living in a mystery. It's like
Right.
I wouldn't even be able to come up with that expression. It's beautiful.
Well, I
We
think
do,
go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, we do too much thinking.
We do a lot of thinking. And so, yes, we can change the diet, but usually when you change the diet, the more anxiety, it's not like a permanent, it's a wave, like, ooh, I'm on a wave of a lot of emotion. Oh my gosh, why am I remembering this trauma from back then? And, why am I anxious about seeing this person? Those things I think are present with us all the time, but we're eating a lot and we're running around and doing our lives, for most of us. And we've got, a million different things happening. And so those things aren't as present with us in terms of being conscious of it. So then we can excuse some of the, bitey remarks or weird energy, because we know that people are, there's a lot happening. They're digesting, they're tired, they're over caffeinated, they're on whatever. So their anxiety comes out in different ways that maybe not be very pleasant. But when you start getting on a clean fast and you realize your adrenals are a little shot and your kidneys aren't filtering and whatever, all the things, and you get some eczema and then there's a whatever, you realize that is highlighting your emotions. So all of this is happening right now at the same time. And so I think what I've really shifted towards is starting to really dive. I don't want to say dive into the fear as like, let's just say looking at it. I'm trying to pause it and look at the frequency. And I could go into the conversation of what do I need to support my body and the organs that are related to that? Absolutely. But it's this emotional component of self-study. And in yoga, it's a principle called svadhyaya, where how do I relate to the body of knowledge? How do I relate to juice fasting? And so it inspires within us self-reflection. And people say, well, I don't have time for that, or it's too difficult, or I have too, it can be overwhelming. So it takes a lot of courage to create space in the day to journal, and the how of, how we move through the emotions. Like, we've got tons of tools, we've got all that kind of stuff. And people can contact me, for more info on that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we've got to find that cohesiveness I spoke about earlier, but we're eventually going towards an equilibrium where my horizontal plane, the part of me that is on this earth with my feet on this ground in this life, I want to get the emotions and the spirit and the physical and the mental balanced. And that needs diet shifts. It needs journaling. It needs rest. It needs meditation. It needs rituals, like cleansing rituals and so forth. So it's looking at our day and seeing, how do I attend to each part of me? Like, how do I do that? Because ultimately what we're doing with Garden of Eden is our theme, is that this is the horizontal plane in which we are on. And then this is, that cross where I'm aligned with my spinal column, and all the 7 systems of my body are connected to my spinal column. And then all of my nerves are connected, 72,000 nerve channels in your body. So it's like, okay, how am I going to sit right now? And you can do this at home. It doesn't have to be like a big, long meditation, or you don't have to, get all the videos even. You could just sit for 2 minutes with the intention to align to the highest good for you and for everybody else. And that integration of the vertical and the horizontal is what we are. We're a speck on that. And so when we sit in that energy and allow ourselves to receive from the divine, and we're on the physical doing the work to cleanse and purify, and we've got our feet on the ground and we're grounding in, we become that point where we can manifest, and we can manifest great things to the extent that we continue to take care of ourselves. And that's the walk and talk the talk. I think so many of us, including myself at times, we just keep looping in the same story, and we come up to the same fear, and it stops us, or it detours us and takes us in another direction. And then we've got to take all that time to come back on track and whatever. But it's like, how do we, when we get to those forks in the road, have enough awareness within ourselves to pause, and instead of pushing through it, look to see what lessons are there for us? Because, I hear a lot about people getting, spun in this shadow work. It's like, get there, extract the lesson, deal with the emotions, purify, and move on. What's the lesson? And usually the lesson has to do with some kind of integration of a spiritual principle of who you really are. So maybe you learned how to be more generous in that situation. You were triggered with money. You realized, whatever the circumstance was, that content, because the spirit, the universe, is using everything in the outer to teach us something about the inner. So we got to go in there and learn how to be comfortable in the discomfort of, what is this about? And what could this mean for me? And I think a level of curiosity and a little bit more fun is a great thing. It's like, I think I do this all the time. I take myself so seriously. And then I, see my kids walking home from school, and I'm like, and they're just in the moment holding hands and frolicking. And it's like, that's beautiful. And there's still a part of me that wants to frolic. Is that allowed as adults? Are adults allowed to have fun without having to do something bad for us? And that's another thing we can look at, training and programming around self-sabotage techniques, like, doing the things, putting things in our bodies that we know are going to make us sick, but doing it because we're looking for pleasure. It's like, okay, so the intention is pleasure. How do I get pleasure without having to sacrifice feeling great? And I think that's what happens. The more that we cleanse, the more we purify, we start to feel so good that we just like, we can make better decisions. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I know the minute I eat that, I already know that. I've already tried it. I've done the trial and error. I've been my own experiment. I know when I eat that, what's going to happen. So we become better choice makers. We make better choices more easily because we're more present.
Yeah, that's very true. Because when I think about eating something that you shouldn't eat, and think about the pleasure of the moment that you're eating it, afterwards you don't feel so good. And that lasts longer than the pleasure of that particular food at that moment.
Right.
And to not make those choices, you said it right, think about something else that actually gives you pleasure. Mm-hmm. Which is better for you. Now, how do you have a family? I think you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you integrate what you're saying with your family? Because a lot of people struggle where one person is going the route they want to go, but it's either kids, partners who don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really big topic. Like, that's an important one. So I'm really glad that you brought it up right now, because, and it was just the women I was talking to last week, same question, like, well, how do you feed your kids? Like, how does dinner look, So my kids are vegetarian, mostly vegan. They do a little bit of dairy now and then, but we try and get it super clean. But they get a lot of good stuff. And so that's my primary focus, is making sure I can get really good things in them. And then if they're supplementing and things like that, they are having some cooked vegan food, I feel good about the fact that they drank watermelon juice today and ate a bunch of raspberries and apples, and they eat a lot of fruit. In the mornings, we do fruits and juices. Their snack at school is fruit, sometimes juice I send in with them. And then at lunch, they might have, like today they had veggie sushis that I get from the place, like cucumber and rice. And they love those. They just kind of pop them in. It settles their belly a little bit, and they go back to school. They had some apples and some green juice. But that's been really a blessing, because when I started a few years ago, it made sense for everybody. And my kids kind of got it. They didn't, my son never liked meat anyway, so he was always picking it out. So for him, he's super committed, and he's 7. He's incredible the way that he's interacting with other children and learning about the fact that other people eat animals. And he's very clear that he's not into that at all. So I love that about him. My daughter is also very passionate about, being a vegan, but she sometimes, I think, has more emotion around just wanting to fit in, and feeling really different can be challenging for them. I'm also a stickler on candies. Like, the school will give them candies or birthday parties and all that GMO and all those dyes. So I usually, I'll get them clean candy, I call it. It's like, sweetened with stevia or monk fruit, and it's, whatever. And I'm learning how to make gummy candies, vegan gummy candies. I got the molds and, things like that. They do superfood smoothies every day. Well, maybe 5 days a week. And I love that. We load them with all the superfoods, the grasses, the greens, the medicinal mushrooms, bee pollen. What else do we put in there? Whatever I kind of am working with. And then the base is a fruit. It's coconut water and bananas and berries. Been doing some dragon fruit and acai sometimes. They like the berry superfoods. So that feels really good too, in terms of like antioxidants and just making sure they're getting nutrition. I think with my initial experiences with fasting and cleansing, what I always fell back on was that I felt like I wasn't getting enough nutrition. And so superfoods, I'm learning. I have a beautiful friend who we'll bring her in at some point, is just a master of superfoods. And so when I started adding those, I really noticed a difference in my own overall energy and health, and capacity to detox too, faster. And that's that. My husband's on board. We've been 3-4 years veggie. But he does we just do a lot of juice. There's always juice. Like my daughter last night, she's going to bed. She goes, "Can I have some juice?" And I go, we drank it all today. She's like, "That's weird. We always have juice," because I'm on it. I'm always juicing something. So that's kind of my overall. But for families that are struggling with that, I think, the first step is just sharing all of your good stuff with them. So, make your smoothies really tasty. And so if they have a smoothie and a cheese sandwich, then okay, but at least I try and get the fruit in first and the nutrients in first. And also, trust the process for all of us. My journey and it's extreme for a lot of people are like, what? To go into a more liquidarian lifestyle it's not, I think everyone could do it if they wanted to, because we have an incredible amount of will, but I just don't know if that's what everybody's going to do or needs to do. I just know it makes sense for me. And I notice the difference in my family. My kids are rarely ill. They're so healthy. They're super active. They're both really, really strong in their bodies. And, people say, well, they don't get protein. I go, well, your body makes protein. So, and then there's all that conversation. So it's learning again how to interact with people. So if they're in your family and they're giving you opposition, sometimes if there's a hard wall, then pull your energy and really go deep on yourself. Make sure you're super, super grounded and taking care of yourself and the things that you need to eat first. And then you can expand. Like yesterday, I made quesadillas for my kids, and I'm in a juice right now. So it was fine. I'm at the point where cravings come and they go, but I'm committed to what I'm up to, and commitment is really everything. Because if you're not committed, then It's
Now
unlikely to succeed.
we usually start with a different diet when something happened to our health. Like for you, it was the cancer. Now, if that wouldn't have shown up, do you feel that you would be at the same point as where you are now?
No, cancer was my catalyst. Cancer was a real gift. I mean, it was hard. It's hard.
Isn't that amazing?
But it really, it was a wake-up call. It was like, wow, I'm, I really got to get my shit together, and take care of myself. It's so easy. I see so many people struggling with their health, and they might not even realize it. Like they're complaining of bloating. It's not like a big thing. It's just some bloating. So in their mind, it's just like, oh, I'm bloated. And it's like, yeah, I know I am so done with symptoms of acidosis and inflammation. And it's just now obvious, I think, to most of us that our food is causing acidosis, in addition to the environment and the emotions and all the things. But if people are really cautious of making that change because their programming is so deep too, there's stuff now around, all the high protein, low carb, and it's just, there's that whole conversation is going to keep going on. But I just kind of stepped outside that conversation and started to realize that I need to experiment on myself, because what worked for, I don't know, those scientific papers, and I don't know, it's just not it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for me. And when I cut out those foods, it's so obvious. And then if I reintroduce them, it's even more obvious because of the purification I have done, that they're causing inflammation and discomfort in my body. So then you ask yourself, well, why am I eating this? Is it for nutrition? Because it's rarely for nutrition. It's usually for, comfort or culture. Like, this is what we do. We're having pizza tonight. This is what's happening. And so I just found for myself, especially in the beginning, there was a lot of grieving, actually, emotionally, of realizing the immensity of the journey and how deeply it was going to affect every facet of my life and every relationship on some level. And what kind of, real courage and trust I was going to need to cultivate within myself to, keep on the journey of, and not only healing cancer, because that was just the effect of a lot of other things that were off on the inner. And you were great with me in the beginning. So grateful for the work that you and I did together, because you really held some space for me to look at, the immensity of it. Wait, we're going to eat fruit. That's it. I grew up in a restaurant family where we're, food people and, wine people. And so it was a big, wait, cooked food is bad for us. It's just to wrap your head around that. So we've got to be compassionate with others if they don't get it, if they're not on board. It's I can understand why not, and most people will just take the sick card. Well, I'll just be a little bit uncomfortable and keep my life the way it is. A lot of people make that choice, and that's okay. But if you want to make a different choice, there's a lot of people out in the world right now that have raised their hands and said, okay, I'll do it.
Now, there are a lot of people that always ask for other testimonials. How did others do it? And I actually, it's not that, there shouldn't be testimonials, but we are so different. We are so different in a way that we experience different things, are at different levels. So how would you say we deal with that, to go with that? Because why should it help us to make the step if we hear that another person was able to do it?
Inspiration, encouragement. I think
because we mirror ourselves at somebody else who accomplished something, who was at a completely different level.
Well, okay, so we have to be really careful not to idolize anyone or anything for anything that they've done or not done in their lives. we can celebrate it, but we have to make sure it's not making us feel bad about ourselves. And I think that there are common themes. And when we work in a group, like I just know from yoga trainings and from, being in different groups that are focusing on the same mission, it's like that, from the Bible, when two or more are gathered, I am there. And so if you can really connect, and I don't think that this happens very often with people, that they can really connect and trust another being, because we're all so wounded. We've trusted people, we've been disappointed, we've been hurt. All of that has occurred for everyone. So when we look at who is our community, who are our leaders, who are the people that are going to support us in manifesting our goals, it's like it could be useful sometimes to work with a coach or a mentor that's just a little bit more in front of you. It's like when I worked with you on the fasting and detox, it's like you were there and I was trying to get there. And you could share with me the things that have worked for you and the information that you've gathered and the experiences that you've had. And that whether I go all the way with it in that time, it's continuing to nurture those new neural pathways within my mind that are very different than the old ones. The old ones are really deeply rooted. And so for people to, it's like, it's on autopilot. It's like, I don't even mean it. But there I am. It's like, oh, but I just had a conversation and someone offered an alternative idea, and that could be interesting. And so just that thought, again, it's like putting pennies in a piggy bank, where you're building your wealth, you're building your momentum towards the goal that you're looking at. What can I do that every day that's going to support me in eventually getting to where I want to go? Because the flip side of that is like, well, I'm never going to get there. It's just too hard, And so when we say that, there are a lot of people that are saying, whatever that is offering me in terms of my health and well-being, it didn't work. The medical industry didn't work for me. Like the food industry isn't working for me. A lot of it is just like, I just don't, I'm on the other side. So for people that are in it, that are realizing that there is another option, is what I'm trying to say. That, like, I remember when I found out I had cancer, it was like, here's what it is. Here's what we're recommending. And then I just kept wanting more information. Like, is there anything, can I do this? Or does it have to do with diet? No, it doesn't have to do with diet. Does it have to do with lifestyle? Well, stress is, and then, okay, well, then my husband brought me this documentary series, The Truth About Cancer, Cure for Cancer or something. It's like a big one, 11 parts. And we dove into that, like, wow. And it wasn't that everything was succinct. It was, I heard in a recent conversation that there's a million different ways to get cancer and there's a million different ways to treat it. I thought that was interesting because, some people are going to do really great with essential oils and herbals and plant medicines and things like that. Some people are going to do better with, supplementation or diet changes, but it's the combination that works for you that you've got to be willing to try things, and give it time, because a lot of times it's like, well, it's been 2 weeks, nothing's happened. It's like, well, how long did it take us to get here? And so many of us, I even know for myself, for cancer, I'm like, it's 5 years, but it's like, it might just be the rest of my life to support me. Not that I'm like, oh, I have cancer, but I want to be cautious about the fact that my body has done this and could do this if I get too far off track. And how do I stay like in the center lane with this? It can be supportive. I know for myself, like I have some friends right now I'm working with that have been so huge in keeping our mentality in a healthy dialogue, and that we're creating new pathways and new experiences in the now, like right now, rather than hoping it will happen later, or I'll figure it out, maybe next summer,
Yeah, and being aware of having actually more compassion, not just for other people, but for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the self-love is usually not quite there.
Well, that's what it takes. I mean, and not that any of us are perfect at it, but you decide that you love the aspect of yourself that is pure, that is from God. And you seek to clean up anything that is not that. And I can get behind that. Like, I can love that I was created and that, God is using my hands and feet and my words to affect whatever transformation or trigger even in someone else's life. I'm okay with that because I'm okay with being a vehicle. Like, I want to be, because I realize in my life when I take charge, like my ego, and I try and manipulate and control, and I go at it with that matrix energy of go conquer. It's not an alignment anymore. And the more that we can love that part of ourselves, and what happens when you get really juicy is that you just start to feel better. Yeah, there's more emotions. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. In some of your conversations, your relationships might feel a little strained, and all of that we can work on. But on a cellular level, you're going to feel better. I mean, more than you're going to feel like, oh, detox symptoms or whatever. That's been my experience. And then I can realize that my worth and my value is in feeling good and feeling healthy. And then I want to do that. I want to respect myself. I want to respect that part of me that God created that wants to use me for this whatever mission. And, I raised my hand before I even got here. So, when we align to our soul purpose and we start to realize it's bigger than us and what I might want for my family or my business, like, I can have those dreams and visions. And if they're aligned to God's plan for my perfect happiness, then they will occur and I'll get the direction that I need and the action steps to take. But if they're not, we've got to learn to let them go. And that's a huge practice we do with food. Can I let this go? At least, and for me, it really works to just be like, today, because every day I wake up, I'm a beginner again. And I have a lot of the same challenges I had yesterday, but today, this is the choice I'm going to make. And then your todays, expand. And that's really the Garden of Eden. That's what the Course in Miracles calls the holy instant. That time expands for us. And instead of having a synchronicity here, a breakthrough here, we still have those and we can acknowledge them and celebrate them. But what starts to happen is that everything's merging together in a way in which your life is a miracle. If you decide to be present in this moment, you would be like, there are miracles everywhere. And so we can hold on to those little ones along the way, but start to realize that they're occurring naturally the more I align to love. So then our life kind of becomes easier and juicing isn't so hard. And making those decisions to take care of your health get easier. And you do have deeper support. I mean, you've got the divine as your coach. So how could you fail? The energy that created the oceans and the trees, is on your team, is encouraging you every moment of every day. And those moments you see, those synchronicities, are the moments that you are aware of it. But again, if you increase your awareness, you realize they're happening all the time. All the time. Every moment of every day is a gift. It's the present moment. It's the present moment. It's a present. It's a gift. So that was fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. I see the compassion for me in everything around me, and I see it more and more. And I do have to, well, I've always been like that, but way more after I started to first the raw vegan and then mostly fruit, and seeing more of the little things and appreciate everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's a difficult journey for most of us. My struggle every day is food. And I wonder if we had grown up with just with the right foods, it wouldn't have been so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something so beautiful, and I did share it in a group or maybe even on my Facebook profile page. about when a baby is born. And we have been taught, it needs to be in a crib, and it needs to have, you need to let it cry and all these things. And I did that with my daughter. I was a very young mom at 19. And I followed all the instructions, and well, it wasn't as much instructions as that I was forced to go that route by family, and they thought they were doing the right thing. And now you learn that it was actually, it should have been completely the opposite. A baby needs to be with her mom. They don't need, they're just these little creatures. They don't need to be separated from you. And that is what we were trying.
Mhm.
And I absolutely believe that if it had been done differently from birth, we have been more emotional, stable children, people.
Right.
It
Well,
is such,
undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. And so, then we learn to reparent ourselves. And, it's, again, the world doesn't work. I mean, the things that it tells us to do. So again, it's like the family, we trust our families, we trust the people. They thought they were doing the right thing. Our parents thought they were doing the right thing, feeding us all of the meat. And I don't judge them, and to them it is the right thing. Behind that, I want to look at, if all of us raise our consciousness a little bit every day, what we'll realize is that a lot of the things that we think are right are based out of fear of doing it wrong, or some power saying this is how you do it. So you stop listening to your insides and you start listening to the outside. So this spiritual journey is about going back inside and learning how to trust your own intuition. And if more and more of us are doing that, then we're creating a totally different paradigm that more and more people can lean into and live into. And so when we talk about like new earth, that's what that is stepping out, forgiving it, accepting what happened. These are the programs. I believed in them. I subscribed. Now I'm unsubscribing. But then there's all that emotional residue. And so we've got to clean up that energy. And there's, meditation, prayer. And my beautiful friend always talks to me about Ho'oponopono, which I've started using in my life. And I love it.
yeah.
Because that energy that doesn't get processed starts to drive. And it again, it skews that beautiful intention that we have, which is to really be connected. I think everybody wants to be more loving and kind. It's not that we don't have that desire somewhere within us. It's just that we are so blocked by our programming to trust that that's enough. And that how will we do this or how will we do that? And so when we start to ask those bigger questions, then we have, opportunities for growth, self-reflection. It always comes back to that. And learning how to trust ourselves is really, right up there with self-love. It's like that's what this journey is about too. So yeah, if we'd been raised differently, for sure. But, and so all of us have opportunities to, I'm doing the best I can with my kids right now with what I know. And so they'll do better than I did. Fingers crossed, right? And then your conversations and my conversations with different moms, one of the kids came over to my house, and it was after school. I make them superfood smoothies, and the daughter drank it. And so the mom writes me later and she says, what was in that? She loves it so much and she wants me to start making them. And I thought, wow, if she really knew it was in there, and so I'm going to meet with her tomorrow. She wants to learn about the different superfoods, and this daughter is going to do great with it because, the kids need nutrition and we're feeding them so much junk. If you look at how much a child, like every day after school, they're having ice cream. Like I know kids that do that. It's like every day. I just think, and then every day you're having hot dogs or pizza or hamburgers. Every day, twice a day, you're eating eggs, and then you're having steak at night, and then you're having a roast chicken, and then you're going to have Chick-fil-A. And it's like, oh my gosh, where's all this going? And I grew up eating like that. So it's a lot to look at, But we can get stuck in the energy driving that, and it would have been different, it could have been, or we can reparent ourselves, which is what you're doing, which is what I'm seeking to do in every moment of every day, and say, well, what would the best version of me, Mommy Marie, what would she put in her body today, and what would she offer her children? And then step into that. And that's why, really the context of this conversation is getting clear on our intentions and becoming more self-aware, looking at our fears. And when you see a fear, ask yourself, what can I do to change this? It doesn't need to be difficult, but it is different. And so learning how to get comfortable in those differences, learning how to accept that you're seeing a different paradigm for your life. You're seeing a different way towards optimal health, and you're pioneering. And so it takes that level of desire for holiness, desire to do good, desire to really get down to the basis of what's happening here, to stop living so much outside ourselves. And what do other people think? And, how am I going to perceive? And can I even do this? Won't I get sick? Don't you need food? It's like when you start to really connect, miracles occur all the time. And you're constantly encouraged and guided along the way. And that's been my experience. And that's what I like to inspire others with, that the inspiration is there, the guidance is there. It's our willingness to spend time doing that, connecting back to source for ourselves. And then the angels around us, either in physical form or not, to continue to nurture us, because we need a lot of nurturing, just like we need nutrition, the same root of the word. We do need to nurture ourselves, but it is wonderful to also have those around us who can nurture us, to step back emotionally from the ones that are a little bit aggressive with their content right now, and remembering I need to be less aggressive with my content as well, respecting others for where they're at. And that can be just fine. And it doesn't have to change where I'm at. And mine isn't necessarily wrong or right. I'm willing to give that up too, even though I do believe that on some level, for optimal health, youth, longevity, expansion, all of those things, we do need to let go of the matrix food. And you can still be on that journey, taking the baby steps forward if you're not ready to go all the way. But the self-reflection part, the starting to look at yourself, that's how it started for me. Like I said, so much of my work was really good stuff, but there was still some fear driving it.
Oh, and we keep learning every day.
Yeah.
I have a question. You were talking about your different superfoods. Can you share one recipe with us?
Yeah, I pretty much the one I do most days has coconut water, bananas, berries. I throw some dates in there. I throw a tablespoon of bee pollen, and then I have chaga, reishi, lion's mane right now of the mushrooms. And I really like the mushrooms. I notice when I'm not, I take a week off here and there. It's not like everyone goes in all the time, but sometimes I don't get a lot of mushrooms. But I do notice that with my, it helps with immunity. I feel a little bit stronger. And then I have a spirulina, blue spirulina, which I love blue spirulina because it's not like algae tasting, fishy kind of smelling. And then I have wheatgrass, barley grass, alfalfa grass. I have a blend that's beautiful, and it has all the kelps. I really like the sea vegetables for minerals. I noticed that I've often have, before I've been so active with superfoods, I would get a lot of brain fog, and I would feel like my bones were tired. Like if I did a 3-week with just juice, on some levels I felt great, but I'm really attuned and really, really, on, but there were other days that I felt like, gosh, I need something. And then I blend it all up, and it kind of, sometimes if the bananas were frozen, it's a little bit more of like a ice cream. So we might do a bowl and put some cacao nibs on it and coconut, cut up berries, like make it like a bowl. And if it's looser, we just drink it.
And what kind of spirulina was it that you were using?
Blue.
Oh, yeah. Okay, got it.
When I
Yeah,
first started
I'm
doing
halfway there
superfoods,
with that one, the bananas and the dates and the other fruits in definitely, but I have been lacking the minerals from the veggies.
yeah,
And that was a big thing for me. I was on more fruit and less. I'm not a big salad eating or lettuce and those things, but it's a good idea.
yeah.
And
I
and
just
the
think if I'm gonna
mushroom,
have a
yeah,
smoothie, it's got to have stuff in it. Like
yeah,
for me, just the fruit, and I love fruit, but I'll just eat it. If I'm gonna blend it all up, I want to get some good stuff in there too. And I notice it. I will tell you, like I had a spoonful of bee pollen yesterday. Within 10 minutes, I was like, ooh, much better. Because sometimes detox symptoms are you feel a little dizzy and it's upgrades. There's so much happening. Our bodies are changing, from carbon to frequency, light frequency. It's immense, but it's a transition. And so I find that superfoods can be more grounding, keep me present in, I got to take my kids here, or I've got this, happening. I've got to still stay active. I can't just lay around and be like, woo, sometimes, but the majority of time we got to be active. And I like being active. I feel better about myself when I'm, being productive and participating, meeting people, talking and, like that.
absolutely, yeah. No, it's a good one, that superfood smoothie. I wrote it down. I missed a few, but I'll get there.
I always say, like, whatever you can get in your body, like you could do acai powders, like, look, I don't know if you shop where you shop, but like, a few different places here I run different specials. And so I'll just be like, what looks good. And as long as it's organic and clean, I cross my fingers and hope for the best. And sometimes I get them on Amazon even. And
Yeah, it can be Amazon. I have a lot of the powdered things and the freeze dried, and I found that you can even get powdered what was it, lemon freeze dried. So there are a lot of options, but I didn't really think about adding actually also the sea veggies. Which one are you using? Because I was using actually the sea moss. Is that something you use?
I'm not into sea moss yet, but maybe someday. I'm using more kelp. Chlorella, I think, is one, and spirulina. I do like the grasses though too. So the blend I have is like Vitamineral. I can send you a link to it.
Yeah, with the grasses, I've never been really into that. I did have it. There's an alfalfa. That is the one that I do have. So that would be one that I actually favor. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you have great information, and I especially liked the first part where we were talking about the vibration, consciousness, unity, compassion.
Grasses though too.
Yeah, it is, and the living in the mystery. It is also, yeah, amazing information, and we do need to get that more out to people. And do you intend to write this down, as in having courses or something?
Yeah, like in about another 10 days. I mean, in terms of the health information, I think that's going to continue to unfold for me as we go. But my coaching content and my meditations and things like that I'm putting them into a membership. So that should be done in about a week. So I'm excited to kind of start getting online again and talking to people and building up a little group and seeing like, hey, who wants to deep dive? And the food will be a part of it for those that are interested. And I'm sure that for some people, it'll focus on that because that's been a huge focus for me in the last year. But, it could just be people who want to work on their relationship to their spouse or be a better mom, want to meditate more, want to practice a little yoga. So it's got a little bit of everything in there. And I'll be starting Miraculous Mondays again, just doing 10-minute kind of little clips for people. And then we'll have a private group. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be really fun. And then, moving forward, I do want to do more like I've done a couple little workshops on juicing right here at my house with people in this community that have been kind of fascinated by, and I do want to say that there are a lot of people that are fascinated and excited about juicing and cleaning up their bodies. And that's the conversation I want to be in, and I would really invite all of us to step into, like, this is a blessing. You've found the secrets to life, it's like, let's celebrate this and let's encourage each other to do what we can to just get more good stuff in. And eventually it will get the bad stuff out, and you'll put less bad stuff in, and you can give yourself that grace to have a time frame with it all. It doesn't have to happen overnight, and it can too. So, but I do want to say that there is a lot of positive feedback too, and it's super encouraging for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to heal my cancer. And I'm like, great, good for you. I'm so proud of you. Because yeah, the more and more people that do that, again, we're creating that new earth. Like, no, thank you. If I'm in a car accident, thank God you're there. And I'm going to cancel that. So it's not going to occur for any of us today, or ever. Yeah, that we can move forward, and we can do cool things. And we can live a really beautiful, healthy life, and we can be in the garden. Last thing I'll say is that conversation with those gals out west, it was like, we were talking about ancestral eating and, bone broths and all that conversation on the minerals and, whole grains and just stuff. And I said, well, yeah, that's what the ancestors ate, but what did they eat in the garden? What did they do? I don't know if they had juicers in the garden, but I don't think they had as much detox to do. And their energy, they don't need as much in the garden because the frequency is so different. And we're learning to run on higher frequencies, which lifts our vibration. And the fuel that we're using is God powered. It's filled with photonic light. So we become lighter. And that's like kind of fun. It's kind of cool, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah, when you first start experiencing that, it is quite amazing that once you wake up and before you had this kind of down feeling, well, on another day, and then it's like, yeah, another day. And for me, it was an amazing feeling. I feel that for me, it was like a dark cloud was lifted.
yeah.
And that was the start of it all. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned something about animals. I had no idea where actually our conversation was going when I mentioned that. But lately, I see more things related to animals and how animals interact with each other, even different species, and how they interact with people. And I begin to start seeing that we have been lied about animals too, about how they are, because I see interactions of animals with people that you would not expect. Like, oh, that is not normal. We expect it from our dogs and our cats. Like, it is normal that a cat or a dog kind of hugs you, wants to be with you, wants to sleep under the blankets with you if they get a chance. They just want to be with you. And for us, I have the examples with my own animals, and I've had dogs in my life. But I do see it with a lot of other animals too, and that was actually unexpected. It can be when you look outside, the squirrels, the possums, the whatever animal, from lions to, I wouldn't say snakes, but heck, I have seen a relationship for a woman who rescued a bumblebee and or a spider, and even talked about the character of that particular spider. And I've been looking at it really in awe, and I do believe that it was supposed to be different. I was looking for an image about the Garden of Eden. What does it look like? How is it? Is there a picture that can show the interaction of us with nature, with other animals, other species? How would it be? And I found that picture, and I think I put it up on the Facebook group gardenofeden.social. And that says it all. For me, it's like, I see it now that the animals are not, that were seen as being aggressive, maybe not aggressive towards people, because I saw that an animal comes, there's food outside, and one animal comes. And then you see that all of a sudden, a lot of more animals are coming. Now, why do they now come? Is that because they heard it from, from the first one that came out? But it's more and more, are they coming together? So there is a communication.
Mhm.
Now, if we would have heard that, heard as in, sometimes I think I pronounce it not correctly, heard as in H-U-R-T, that person, that animal. So now it will tell all the other animals and their family members, and that don't go there because that's danger. So now we have a lot of animals that are actually afraid of us because we have hurt a lot of animals, we've abused them, and so there is a fear. And you hear about even cattle that tries to escape from being killed. So there is a communication that I think 9 out of 10 people are not even aware of this. And that it can be the whole life, that whole Garden of Eden life can be so much different than we ever thought could be.
Yeah.
Making sense to you?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, nature is always communicating with us. We're just so busy in the matrix outside reality, which is the garden. So like, I've had beautiful conversations with cows and trees and birds and chipmunks, and, almost telepathic. Like it's just like a connection point, like that we are all life, like we're all alive and we're all right here, and we all respect each other and see the value and, the equanimity within the species. Like, I think this whole human domination business is, again, just it's our egos playing out our collective ego structure on a really big, plane. I could tell you some stories about all sorts of things with, cows and food. It's just like, like my son, for example, he's so beautiful because he can't register it. And I feel really grateful that we always told them the truth of what it was. If you want to eat that, you can. And so he's just very clear. And I think that we all were at some point, but we just kind of got pulled into it. And it was the culture, and it was a party, and this is just what we do in the matrix. So it really is about stepping out to an alternative reality, still being here, but you're in the world, but you're not of it. You communicate with flowers and trees. You're one with the ocean.
Yeah.
You know that. You already know that. And so with that knowledge, you're moving out into the world. You're different. And that's okay. It's like, it's not like you're like preachy and like, hey, look at me. It's just you're having a full experience of life. Like you're present, you're empowered, your cells are alive, they're spinning, you're processing anything that's not yours anymore, anything that's not serving. It's like, it doesn't matter where these emotions came from, they're yours now. So let's clear them and move on. And yeah, so I could keep going, but I know that we've got to wrap. So I'm glad that you talked about the animals, because it's, if you really thought about it, like I have a story for you real quick, and it's a little bit heavy, but there was someone we met recently who has these restaurants in the States, and they are like 100 and some restaurants, and it's called, well, it has barbecue in the name. Let me just say that. So we can all kind of gather what kind of food is being served there. And he said to us, we're having a hard time keeping up with demand. Okay, so what he was saying, we're having a hard time killing enough animals fast enough to keep up with the human consumption of animals. I was like, it was a big, moment. It's like, okay, well, then you look at, okay, my part in this is I want to support industries whose product, like the demand for the product, is something holy. When we start to use our creative energy in that direction towards holiness, what's good, what brings more peace onto this planet, what's lifting the vibration, what's loving, then things change. We spend our money with fair trade. We don't, we don't even overspend. We look to see where, do I want to support Chinese children working so I can get cheap clothes? I mean, I've bought them for my kids and stuff for me sometimes. Like sometimes we do those things, but then it always comes back to how much more can I fully stand into this new reality where I'm supporting people that are interested in the same things that I am. And we're all encouraging each other to move forward. That's where, again, we get into this more, we're closer to the garden. We can see it in our mind, we can feel it in our hearts, and we can see it more and more with our eyes, the more we shift from that. So what is the demand? Like what's driving this product? It's really interesting. But I have to think that like at some point, it's just going to click. And that's the vision I'm holding for more and more people, and the conversation ensued to be like, oh, well, and then it was, I heard, we got into, well, yeah, we're vegetarian. And I don't like to tell people I'm whatever. I just try and keep it like that. And it was, oh, and she said, oh, we're just going to turn into alcoholics. And she kind of said it like she thought it was funny. And I went, oh, this, are you sure you want to do that? You don't have to. A watermelon juice can get you high, it's like, but it gives people like your presence and your willingness to just keep on the path. It plants seeds all the time. We can't even know what's happening through our work. We could just keep working, so.
We do. It's an amazing journey.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love every minute of it.
Beautiful.
Even the times where I have problems with my knees, they go way, way back. And you were mentioning about communication with flowers. And all of a sudden it popped in my mind that beautiful red rose that I had outside.
Nice.
And talked to it every day, smelled it because it was beautiful. But when I couldn't walk and someone else was watering the plants the same way I did, plant died.
Oh, she missed you.
I've seen that with more plants. So there is absolutely something. And I have a friend here in the community who always said, yeah, I talk with all my plants. And it's like, yeah, we do too. Yeah, well, thank you, Marie, for being here and sharing all that beautiful stuff that actually opened my eyes even more on how I can better help my clients. And we will definitely connect more about that with each other. I look forward to that. In the show notes, in the description, I put links like I did when you were on the podcast a few months ago. So your links to your websites and what is it? Business Facebook profile, and I think your personal one is there too, or your YouTube. I'm not quite sure what I put there, but I know it's there.
Good. It's all good. I mean, at some point, I'll really go for it online again soon. I keep saying that it's been a good long time, but we need to take a pause sometimes and really self-reflect. And
sometimes it's little steps forward. I'm not always as active as I like to be and see moving things as much I would like. And that's why I asked you about courses, because I just purchased the software to put the courses for content creators on the Garden of Eden or gardenofeden.social. So that will be an option there too.
Thank you. I would love to offer a course.
To share more, because together, we can even help people better. It's not just me. It's like you have an insight in things that I haven't even thought about, although, getting in a good direction, but you word it so beautifully and so clear that it's helpful for all of us. So thank you so much for being here, Marie. I look forward to the next time.
Thank you, Toni. Me too. It's always such a treat to be with you. Thank you. I really appreciate this. You're so much fun. super chill.
And thanks everyone for being here. Today we missed Sarah, but she had a graduation day, so she couldn't be here. So I would say thanks everyone for being here. Love to you, and till the next time.
Bye-bye.